She grew up in front of millions but felt completely invisible. Riley just revealed the one thing fame could never give her, and it is breaking hearts across the internet. Everyone thought her father's absence was the real wound, but Riley just confessed it was her mother's presence that hurt the most. This changes everything. What if your parent gave you everything but never truly saw you? Riley just exposed the emotional truth behind the spotlight. And now, the world is finally listening. I have been cheering from a distance, and I am really proud to share that my daughter, Riley, is going to be part of a brand new show on Bravo called Next Gen. They just announced it last week, and it is coming out on June 3rd. You all saw Riley grow up on The Real Housewives, and now she is stepping into a new spotlight. I hope everyone supports her on this new journey. When it came time to prepare Riley for her big step into the spotlight, I gave her some heartfelt advice. Nothing sugar-coated, just the truth. I reminded her that while she had been on reality TV before, this was a whole new ballgame. Back then, she was just a child appearing in the background, often with limited screen time. But now, she would be front and center, with the camera following her story. Not just tagging along with mine. I told her plainly, "Look, Riley, when you are filming, you have to stand by every word that comes out of your mouth. If you say something, own it. Do not act like it never happened, because trust me, they will rewind the tape. They always do. Reality TV does not allow for much pretending. You cannot go back and rewrite your scenes. The cameras are always rolling, and every word matters." I told her, if you say something bold, that is fine, but stand on it. And if you realize later that you were wrong, then be grown enough to apologize. Be real, just never lie. Because honestly, reality shows already have enough people faking things, and you do not need to be one of them. That advice was not just about TV, it was about character, about integrity. And I knew it mattered even more for Riley because the world already knew her name. People have been watching Riley grow up on screen for years, ever since she was a little girl on The Real Housewives of Atlanta. But what caught everyone off guard recently was when Riley decided to open up on a podcast, sharing how she really felt about growing up with a mother in the spotlight. It shocked a lot of people. They had watched her on TV for years and thought they knew her. Many remembered Riley as the quiet, serious girl who barely spoke during scenes. Some thought she was just a shy teenager. Others assumed she was uncomfortable with the cameras, but Riley revealed that it was much deeper than that. In her own calm and thoughtful way, she explained what had been going on behind those silent stares. She said that growing up, she often felt like she was more of an accessory to her mother's image than a daughter. To her, it seemed like her role on the show was to complete the shot, to stand there, smile, and look good when the cameras were on. But inside, she felt emotionally distant. She felt like she had to perform, not because she wanted to, but because it was expected of her. She shared how hard it was to carry that pressure. To always appear polished, to act like she was happy even when she was not. Riley said people mistook her silence for being reserved, but the truth was, she just never felt like she had a space to be herself. She was surrounded by lights, cameras, and a successful family, but deep down, she felt invisible. And what really made her story powerful was how honest she was about the emotional cost of growing up in that environment. She talked about how she often felt like a background character in her own life. Despite all the material things, the travel, the private education, what she longed for the most was emotional presence. She said she wanted a mom who could slow down, who would see her, hear her, and understand her, not just show up to events or provide everything money could buy. Riley made it clear that she was not trying to blame anyone. She did not speak out to hurt her mother or shame her. She spoke because she was finally finding her voice. And when she did, it hit home for a lot of people, especially young women who grew up in high-pressure homes, where image and success were everything. Her words opened up conversations that had been buried for years. Fans began to look at old episodes differently. They rewatched scenes where Riley stood in the background or barely spoke during emotional moments. At the time, it just looked like teenage awkwardness, but now, people saw the signs of something more. An emotional distance that had always been there, but no one really noticed until she explained it herself. The way Riley carried herself in that interview, calm, graceful, and clear, made people listen. She was not dramatic. She was not seeking sympathy. She just wanted to be honest. She wanted to finally say the things she had held inside for years. That kind of honesty is rare, especially in a world where people often pretend everything is perfect. Riley's courage to speak up showed a new side of her, one that many people could relate to. It reminded everyone that even kids who grow up in the spotlight, with fame and fortune, still need love, attention, and emotional connection. In the end, Riley's story is not just about reality TV, it is about growing up, finding your voice, and learning that it is okay to speak your truth even if it takes years to find the right words. Riley shared that for a long time, she felt more like part of her mother's brand than like a daughter. She said she was expected to show up, look good, and smile on not because she wanted to, but because it was what the cameras needed. She said it felt like she was there to help finish a scene, not to truly be herself. Now that Riley finally has her own space on television, things feel different. This time, she is not just a guest in someone else's spotlight, she is stepping into her own. With this new platform, she is starting to speak up and share her truth in ways she never could before. And what she has to say is powerful, because for years, people only saw one version of her. But now, we are beginning to understand what was really going on behind that quiet presence. Riley recently admitted that during her younger years on The Real Housewives of Atlanta, she often felt pressured to present a certain image. She felt like she had to smile, look polished, and act calm even if that was not how she truly felt inside. That kind of pressure is hard for anyone, but especially for a child growing up in front of the cameras. Instead of being allowed to just be a kid, Riley felt like she had to constantly meet expectations. She had to perform. She had to make sure she looked and acted in a way that matched the show's brand even if it did not feel natural to her. She explained that it was not about being camera shy. It was about not feeling safe enough to be herself. There is a huge difference between staying quiet because you are shy and staying quiet because you feel like no one really sees you. And that is what Riley was going through. She did not feel like there was space for her real emotions, her real personality, or even her real struggles. What people saw on screen was only the surface. If you take a moment and rewatch those old Atlanta episodes, you will probably notice it now. Riley was almost always there but quietly in the background. She was rarely the center of attention, and when she was, she kept her answers short and her expressions serious. At the time, most viewers just brushed it off. They figured she was just a moody teenager or that she did not like being filmed. But now, with the new insight Riley has given us, it is clear that there was something much deeper happening. She was not being cold or distant, she simply did not feel free to show what she was really feeling. That is not something many people understand unless they have been through it. When a child grows up surrounded by cameras, public attention, and high expectations, they often feel like they have to put on a mask. They are taught, either directly or indirectly, to behave a certain way because it looks better on TV. They learn to smile even when they are hurting. They learn to stay quiet when they want to speak. And over time, that becomes exhausting. Riley's words hit home for so many people because they reflected a truth that often goes unspoken. Sometimes, it is not about what parents do, it is about what they unintentionally miss. When a child starts to feel like they are more valuable for how they look or how they fit into the family's public image, they can begin to feel invisible. And that kind of emotional disconnection leaves scars that are hard to see but even harder to heal. One of the most heartbreaking things Riley shared was that she often felt like an accessory to her mother's life, not a daughter with her own voice. That says so much. Imagine being part of a show watched by millions, and yet feeling like no one truly hears you. She was not just filling up space on screen, she was carrying a quiet weight, one that most people never noticed, until now. Now that she is older and has found her own footing, Riley is finally starting to open up and people are listening. She is not trying to blame anyone. She is not throwing accusations. She is simply telling her story. And in doing so, she is helping others feel less alone. Because there are many kids, especially those raised in high-pressure or high-profile families, who feel the same way but have never had the chance or the courage to say it out loud. Riley's new role on TV is not just entertainment, it is a moment of healing. It is her reclaiming her voice, her story, and her truth. And for the first time, she is being seen not as someone's daughter, but as her own person with her own thoughts, her own feelings, and her own story to tell. I also used to give her advice based on my own experiences. I would say, Riley, when I went through it, here is what happened. Learn from that. And then there is her father, Russell Block Spencer. As shown on the show, he has not played much of a role in her life. Kandi has spoken about trying to involve him, but recently, Riley brought up something that made things even more complicated. She confirmed that he was never really there for her. Riley recently said something that really made people stop and think. Even when a parent is around, they can still make you feel invisible. Sometimes, a single sentence can change everything. That is exactly what happened when Riley said, even when a parent is there, they can still make you feel invisible. With those few words, she completely shifted the focus of the conversation. Up until that point, most of the public attention had been on her father's absence. People talked about how he was never really in her life and how her mother, Kandi Burruss, had to raise her alone. But Riley's statement made something else clear. It was not just about who wasn't there, it was also about who was. What Riley revealed was something deeper and more painful. Even though her mother was physically present, going to events, working hard, and providing for the family, Riley often felt emotionally alone. She was not talking about abandonment in the typical sense. She was talking about emotional neglect, the kind that is harder to spot but just as damaging. It is the kind of pain that does not come from being left behind, but from being right next to someone who still does not truly see you. It has been about a year since Kandi Burruss stepped away from The Real Housewives of Atlanta, a show she had been a part of for 14 years. When she first announced her departure, people were surprised. And when she was asked whether she had any regrets, she admitted that she did hesitate. After spending over a decade doing the same thing, it is never easy to walk away. She questioned herself. Was it the right decision? Would she miss it? But eventually, she felt at peace. That chapter, she said, had come to a close and it was time for something new. However, even with Kandi closing that door, her daughter was just beginning to open up about what life in that spotlight had really felt like. Riley's words offered a completely new perspective. She made it clear that while her mother was always there at the shows, doing interviews, working tirelessly to support the family, she did not always feel truly seen, heard, or understood by her. And that was where the real hurt came from. According to Riley, the pain was not only about what was missing in her life. Sometimes, the pain came from what was there but did not feel like enough. The hugs that felt rushed, the conversations that felt surface level, the smiles that did not reach the eyes. That is a different kind of emptiness. And for Riley, it lingered quietly in the background for years. In society, and especially within the Black community, we often celebrate parents, mothers who stay and provide for their children when the other parent walks away. And yes, that absolutely deserves respect. Kandi did stay, she did provide. She worked hard and gave Riley opportunities, education, and access to a world many kids could only dream of. But Riley's story reminds us that love is not only measured by how much you give, it is also measured by how well you connect. Riley is helping people understand that there is a difference between being in the same room with your child and actually being present with them. It is not enough to simply show up physically. Kids need to feel emotionally safe. They need to know that when they speak, someone is listening. That when they are hurting, someone cares enough to notice. What Riley has shared is not just a personal story, it is a larger truth that many young people, especially those raised by high-achieving, busy parents, can relate to. When a parent is juggling work, fame, public expectations, and everything in between, emotional connection can sometimes slip through the cracks. And to a child, that disconnection does not look like strength, it feels like silence. So while the world applauded Kandi for being a strong mother, Riley was silently wishing for something softer, something more personal. She did not need more gifts, more clothes, or more vacations. She needed attention that was not split between work calls and camera crews. She needed the kind of attention that makes a child feel important for who they are, not just how they appear. Riley's bravery in sharing this truth is opening up important conversations about parenting. It is making people question how we define being a good parent. Is it about providing everything a child wants? Or is it about making sure they never feel like they have to earn your love and attention? In the end, Riley's story is not about blaming anyone, it is about revealing a quiet truth that often gets ignored. She is not pointing fingers. She is giving voice to a feeling many kids have, but never say out loud, and maybe that is what makes her voice so powerful. She also said something brave that many people with wealthy parents are afraid to admit. Money doesn't fix you emotionally. She is not wrong. Even though she had everything on paper, private school, fancy vacations, clothes, and even a spot at NYU, it never replaced the need for a parent who slowed down, paid attention, and truly saw her. She said, "I needed a mom who could pause everything and just see me." That level of honesty is rare, but deeply powerful. Riley's message was not bitter. She was not attacking her mother or trying to gain sympathy. She was just speaking her truth. She never said Kandi was a bad parent, only that, despite her efforts, she did not always meet Riley's emotional needs. And it was the quiet, calm way Riley expressed herself that made people believe her. It felt like she was searching for peace, not drama. For years, viewers only saw Riley in short scenes on Real Housewives. Back then, her silence seemed like normal teenage behavior. But now, people are starting to understand that it might have been emotional distance. There was a college farewell scene where Kandi was crying and expressing pride, but Riley barely reacted. At the time, it looked like awkwardness, but now it feels more like emotional disconnect. Then people remembered a 2021 YouTube Q&A, where Kandi joked about Riley not liking hugs and not saying "I love you" easily. Everyone laughed. Then. Now, it just sounds sad. It does not feel like Riley was distant for no reason. It seems like she was emotionally closed off, perhaps from years of feeling unseen. Fans also pointed out that Riley rarely appeared in reunion episodes, even when the topics directly involved her, like her dad. And when she did show up, she barely said anything. One fan even pointed out how Riley, a young black woman, stayed quiet even when she had every right to speak up. Meanwhile, people around her made comments like, "You've learned to make friends from all walks of life," as if that made everything okay. But deep down, it felt like Riley was still holding back, still unsure whether it was safe to express herself. And then came the unexpected twist. Phaedra Parks entered the conversation. She never named names, but it was obvious who she was talking about. She said, "It's easy to look perfect for the cameras, but some of these moms are not showing up emotionally or spiritually behind the scenes." That one line hit hard. It made people think not just about the show, but about the real lives behind the scenes, the kind of parenting that happens when no one's watching. Fans immediately reacted with intensity. But then things got even deeper. Riley's emotional honesty sparked more attention when someone brought up a painful memory. A sharp comment followed, claiming Riley once cried backstage, begging for her mother's attention. Not long after, a former production assistant from Real Housewives of Atlanta went viral on TikTok. In the video, she said she remembered seeing Riley backstage, sitting quietly by herself while Kandi was busy doing interviews or press events. There was no team, no family hovering around, just Riley, alone with her phone, keeping out of everyone's way. As more people listened to Riley's words, the story stopped feeling like just a celebrity moment. It became something bigger. Within the Black community especially, real conversations began happening. People started talking about how many Black mothers are raised to always be strong, always in control, always providing, and sometimes that strength leaves little room for softness, for emotional connection. This was not just about Kandi Burruss anymore. It was about culture, parenting, and the invisible weight so many children carry. Riley quietly explained what many young people feel but rarely say: you can have success, love, and support on the outside, but still feel completely alone on the inside. Her honesty pushed people to ask tough questions. What does good parenting actually mean? How do you balance providing with being emotionally available? Riley gave words to emotions that many daughters in hypershare homes had buried for years. Then, just as the dust was beginning to settle, a quiet but emotional message began circulating online. It was from someone claiming to be one of Riley's former teachers. The teacher said Riley was never a problem in class. She had good grades, followed the rules, but always looked like she was carrying something heavy. Something no child should carry. The teacher wasn't accusing anyone of anything. There were no big scandals or shocking stories, just a quiet observation of a young girl who did everything right, but still seemed deeply lonely. And when people looked back at old episodes, they began to notice the same things: Riley's silence, her emotional distance, the way she stayed on the sidelines. None of this was new. It had always been there. Riley's interview didn't come out of nowhere. It was the moment everything finally made sense. She didn't share her story for fame or attention. She wasn't blaming anyone or being dramatic. She spoke gently, with grace and clarity. And in doing so, she started a conversation that many people had avoided for far too long. As for Kandi, her Instagram Live didn't really answer anything. It actually left fans with more questions. What will she say next? How will she respond? We still do not know, but one thing is clear: this moment matters. So now we ask, was Riley wrong to speak out? Or was this finally her chance to be heard? This is the kind of moment that sparks real conversations. Let us know your thoughts in the comments.